Oh my gosh, I'm not even smart enough to know when I'm talking stupid.
Well,
That's where I get in trouble.
there was somebody who said something about his boss or something. It's like, oh, I should not have
Oh
said
no,
that.
you're kidding.
Yeah.
Should I even touch the microphone or is
Yeah,
it
you can
good?
adjust it. Yeah.
I don't
Just
know if is this good right here?
yeah, you can adjust it a little bit lower so that way it's
Oh,
not like
okay,
up in your nose.
great,
But
cool.
okay, well, thanks for coming, Doug.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this is my podcast here, Achieve Real Estate Podcast. We have Doug Benson joining us. He's a longtime investor here in the Lansing area. Yeah, why don't we just get started? How did you get started in real estate?
Actually, it was Deb that got us started. Was raised to be a government worker. My dad worked for the state. My mom worked for the county.
Mm-hmm.
That was what you were expected to be as a Benson. You were going to be a white collar bureaucrat. And I followed that path. I got into software engineering. I became a bureaucrat with EDS and then HP.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Hewlett Packard had 340,000
It's
employees.
a
So that
monster.
was
Yeah.
right. And supporting General Motors. And I just thought that was my life. I'd do that and then I'd I'd retire, get the gold watch and go home.
Yeah.
Deb's family her father was an incredible entrepreneur. Uh, of course, he had a day job for a while, but then he left that and he got into real estate investing. And so Deb's been exposed to it her whole life. She thought everybody did it.
Mm-hmm.
And in my life, I didn't know anybody that ever did it. So
Yeah.
it was all on Deb. But what I enjoyed about it was I enjoyed the contractual side of it. I enjoyed the financial side. I enjoyed the spreadsheet side. As a software engineer, you're pretty comfortable with numbers. So
Yeah.
I just thought that was fun. And well, the first deal we did was the one I was telling you about, that 4-unit that we have in Holt.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Her brother knew some guys that owned that 4-unit and they wanted to get out of the rental business. And he knew that Deb and I were looking around. So Debbie and I and his brother, we partnered up. We bought that place. Her brother was going to be the maintenance guy, and we were going to be like the bookkeeper, marketing, lose sleep over the tenants people.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that for a year or two. And then Rick, went on. He wanted to do other things, so we bought him out. And that was like the beginning. We started looking for more units because we discovered early on we just couldn't find anything that worked until we found this fourplex that worked, the one in Holt. And so then we started, well, maybe we should get something larger. And so we looked at a 16-unit on
Mm-hmm.
Alpha Street.
What year range was
This
this?
would have been in 2002, 2003.
Okay.
And when we purchased the 4-unit in Holt, we had zero experience, and the banks knew it.
Mm-hmm.
They were terrified to give us the money. And it was a 4-unit. It wasn't really even a commercial rental. It was just like a residential 4-unit. But they put a lien on every one of our cars, which is kind of comical because at the time, our cars couldn't have been worth more than 2,000. We had like 3 or 4 cars, right? I had 4 daughters. Debbie and I each had a car. And together, they were worth maybe $2,000. They're old used cars. But I just remember the bank was like, well, we don't want to get fleeced by you guys. It was just so patronizing.
Yeah.
Make a long story short, we refinanced. We went with a different company. And that we used that company to help us buy Alpha Street, which is a 16-unit.
Okay.
And
how'd you find that one? Was it just
that
listed,
one,
or?
that one was Deb and I were looking. We were driving through neighborhoods in Lansing that we thought would be places that we'd be comfortable in investing. And there's some units that are near the corner of Jolly in Pennsylvania. They have a name that I can't remember the name. The brick buildings are kind of attractive buildings. They're right on the northwest and southwest corner.
Okay.
And I called on one of them because it looked like what we were interested in. And Sam Dua answered the phone. He was the listing guy. And I said, hello, Mr. Dua. My name's Doug Benson. I'm looking for real estate. Well, that's how I met Sam Dua, was on that phone call, because we then took a left on Pennsylvania, went down to Kavanaugh, turned right.
Mm-hmm.
And right there was a boy and his sister, young kids, selling lemonade.
Mm-hmm.
It was like kind of a Norman Rockwell thing.
Yeah.
And the setting is so beautiful. That part of the city is very beautiful. It's over near that Penway Church.
Yep.
And we just thought, wow, this is meant to be. And so we turned left, went north on Alpha Street, and here were these 2 8-unit buildings. So back then we had to go to the courthouse to figure out who owned them. There's nothing online.
Yeah.
So we go to the Ingham County Courthouse and we look it up and we find out the owner, and we called him up, and he's a guy that he ended up being an attorney of ours. He's a business partner of ours, Pat Gallagher.
Okay.
Right. But when Pat picked up the phone, he goes, who is this? And I go, it's nobody. I'm nobody. I'm Doug Benson. I'm interested if you were wanting to sell your 2 8-unit buildings up here. After a year, we owned it. I mean, eventually we came around. Sam ended up being my buying agent.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up putting all the paperwork together, and that was the beginning. And the thing is, from a financing perspective, the bank felt that what we'd done with a 4-unit proved that we were landlords,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy because a year and a half prior to that, the bank said, "Oh, you guys are, we're so terrified of you guys being landlords that we're going to put leases on all your cars to back up this debt." But by then, it's like we'd had enough
Yeah, now you have
credibility.
a track record.
Yeah, so we got a track record, and that was kind of how it all started.
All right, yeah. A few questions come to mind. Your
Sure.
first 4-unit, how'd you come up with a down payment for that one?
Okay, then you were able to have 90% loan to value.
Okay.
So we bought it for 100 grand. All we need to do is come up with 10,000,
Okay.
which is an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
But I had that easily with equity in my house.
Okay.
So I just took out an equity loan, bada bing, bada boom, and we got the financing.
Okay. And then the second one, you said you went back and forth for a year. What did that look like exactly? Because sometimes people call and they say, I don't want to sell, and they think that's the end of it, but you were persistent.
That was us initially meeting Pat,
Mhm.
initially, I don't want to say convincing him that he wanted to sell, but it wasn't for sale. It's just a building that we found. So that was him coming around to wanting to sell the building. I'm just trying to think of why did that take a year? I don't remember anything getting in the way of it. It just took a while to have everything sort of float its way out. I think we saw his building in 2003 and bought it in 2004.
Okay.
So I think it was about a year. But yeah, we were absolute rookies when we bought Holt Road. We didn't know the first thing.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful way to learn
Mhm.
because nobody's losing their life. In a 4-unit, I mean, yeah, you're going to mess up some stuff. Like, I will never forget when the first tenant moved. I'm like, wait, you're moving? I thought you came with a
Yeah.
I mean, I thought you came with a
Thought you'd
building.
be here
I was just
forever.
like, yeah, what do you mean you're going to live somewhere else? That's how we were just so raw. But we just put in place some of our systems. It caused us to sort of refine our lease, our
Mhm.
paperwork,
Yeah.
our techniques, our marketing. And by the time Alpha Street came along, that was a smart move. This would have been in 2004, before the crash.
Mhm.
So I don't mind sharing. I think we paid like 27.5 per door,
Oh, yeah.
which is quite a bit of money for 1-bedroom units back in 2004.
Okay.
So you can see what the crash did, because after the crash in 2015,
Mm-hmm.
we purchased 20 units for 30 grand a door.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a whole new environment after the crash. But yeah, and we're buy and hold till we die investors. We've never sold anything that we own.
Mm-hmm.
So Alpha Street's the one that we have now. Half of the building is medium-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, half of the units. We have a north and a south building. The north building is all medium-term rentals. The south building is all long-term rentals.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
working out very nice.
So I want to talk to you about midterm rentals
Sure.
a little later on. So
Yep.
why larger apartments? You said you did the 4-unit, then 2 8-units.
Well, it just seemed like all the margins were greatly improved the larger the number of units were.
Mm-hmm.
We struggled early on. We kept looking at buying houses to rent, and like I said, buying duplexes to rent them out. They never worked. The first one that worked was the 4-unit.
Mm-hmm.
When we put the numbers down, and I think we're pretty good at due diligence. When we did the due diligence on the 16 units, wow, that one absolutely cash flowed at the current rents. I
Yeah.
mean, we didn't even have to factor in increased rents or make the place nicer. As it sat, it cash flowed enough to where we were comfortable. We couldn't lose with the place. And so that's what we found, is that larger numbers just tend to lean in on the margin effect of the expense isn't quite so great
Mm-hmm.
with the larger number of units. So yeah, that was just kind of the calculator that taught us to buy
So a
that.
lot of people are daunting to jump into a 16-unit, not only from the management perspective, but also from the down payment perspective. So how
Sure.
did you fund that one? Did you have partners
Well,
or?
believe it or not, that one, we were still in the 90% loan to
Okay.
value.
Mm-hmm.
That building went for 450,000.
Okay.
So all I had to do is come up with 45,000,
Mm-hmm.
another equity loan.
Okay.
I mean, I know that sounds terrible.
No, that's the power of owning
but
your
yes,
own house,
it is.
right?
It's the absolute power of having access to funds. And I'll tell you, when Debbie and I were flipping houses, we were cashing against credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
We were just any way that we could raise money,
Yep.
we were taking advantage of,
Mm-hmm.
because the houses always turned, they always flipped.
Yep.
There was always margin left over. And that's really the key. That's the absolute key.
So it's
is
risky,
funding.
but you were persistent, and
Yes.
and if a bank said no, you found a different way to
Right.
figure it out.
Right. And I have another kind of strange financing story, but in 2015, when we bought the 20 unit just down the road here, we bought that in the spring. And I mean, that was a big purchase. For us, that was a
Mhm.
$600,000 building.
Yeah.
And immediately, probably within 4 months after we bought that, a 17 unit became available on Ellen Avenue,
Mhm.
near the corner of Ellen and Hamilton.
Mhm.
Well, Deb and I used to live on Paris Avenue, which is 1 block away, and we always used to walk up to an old restaurant called John's Country Burger. And we'd walk by this building every time. Every Friday night we'd go up there because they had a great fish fry. And we'd stare at that building going, God, that's an attractive building. Wouldn't it be nice to own that one day?
Hmm.
That was when we were first married. We didn't know a darn thing about anything. But that was the building that became available.
Oh.
And with the amount of money we were pouring into Elmhurst, that's the 4200
Hmm.
South Penn, we didn't have the dollars to buy another
Yeah.
building. So I reached out to some friends, and they're both money lenders, right? And so I was able to get, again, you're buying a $500,000 building, you need to come up with $100,000 down, because I was doing the 80-20. The
Hmm.
bank was going to provide 80%, I'd provide 20% in the downstroke. And so I needed $100,000. One guy gave me 50, the other guy gave me 50.
Yeah.
I made a promissory note to each of them. I put them in second position, and I had the bank finance the mortgage.
Yeah.
So I didn't put a penny in to buy it. I mean, that was no kidding. That was a cash-free purchase. And we ended up paying those guys off after 2 years. We paid off their debt to them.
Hmm.
We refinanced because by then rates were starting to work their way
Hmm.
down. This would have been in 2015. We refinanced in like 2017, 2018. And that was interesting. It was fun. It
Did
was
you pay
easy
them
to
off
do.
with the cash flow or with the proceeds of the refinance?
Cash flow and the proceeds of
Okay.
the refinance. Yep. I got involved with a 12% deal with both of them, so it was
Mm.
worth their while.
Mm.
But yeah, we were easily able to make them go away and take on the new mortgage note at a smaller rate, and the rest is history. So yeah, that
So
worked
those
good.
those two individuals, because a lot of people are looking for private money and say,
Yes.
like, well, I can't
Yes.
find any. Were they acquaintances, previous people you worked with? Like, where'd you meet those?
I made a speech in 2011. We were raising money for the Detroit Public Schools,
Hmm.
and they asked me to speak about owning multifamily. I think at that time, Debbie and I had maybe 44 units.
Hmm.
And so I just stood up, and I'm always kind of a lighthearted guy. And so it was kind of a funny presentation. It's actually on my website. I haven't looked at it in a while, because we recorded it and we were able to keep the image
Hmm.
and the audio going. But regardless, I was standing in front of this group of people just telling them what it's like and things to look out for. And there's a lot of kind of humor in the slides. I don't know if you remember the movie The Fifth Element.
Hmm.
Do you remember those ugly monsters with the big ears?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Those guys I use as examples of bad tenants. You know what I mean? It's that kind of humor,
Hmm.
just lighthearted. Okay. So Debbie had a table at the back of the room, and we're in some auditorium. I don't even remember where we were, but she had put together a bunch of these little metal tins with M&Ms in them, and they had the Esker Properties business card in them. We're so rookie at
Hmm.
this. So after my talk, I went back there, and like 4 or 5 guys came up with real serious, like they weren't, and they were writing on the back of their cards, and they're handing them to me. Oh, good to meet you, Bill. Thank you, Bob. And he says, turn over the card. What? And I turned over the card, and it said 250,000.
Hmm.
And in my life, I'd never see. I wasn't thinking. I'm. How do I say this? I'm such a rookie to financing that I didn't imagine that anybody would even A, have that kind of money, B, want to give me that kind of money. And I said, well, what's this for? He says, the next building you buy, that's how much I want to give you to help you buy it.
Yeah.
So they were approaching me to be partners.
Yeah.
And the lesson I learned that day, and it was very profound, is that it's only because I just put it out to the universe
Yeah.
that I was in this business. Probably wasn't any better than anybody else. I certainly didn't have the knowledge better than anybody else. I was just a guy with a little bit of energy, and I put it out to the universe that, hey, we're Esker Properties. We think we want to grow. If you'd like to be a part of that, come and let me know. So one of them was those guys. He owned a few jewelry shops in
Mhm.
Flushing, Michigan.
Okay.
He'd sold them all, yeah, loaded with money. And he helped us do flip houses. Debbie and I, we flipped like 25 houses.
Mhm.
And he was involved with financing, complete financing,
Yeah.
purchase and modification of maybe 8 or 9 of these houses. And he always got paid. And in fact, there's one of them where he thought he got paid too much, gave some money back. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
this guy was incredible.
It's a good friend
So
to have,
he is. He's a wonderful guy to have. And the other guy was a guy, Eric, and we've just been close to Eric. He was with us when we started doing investing in Southeast Michigan. That's where we went for our group. We never invested in Southeast Michigan, but Eric was down there, and he was doing pretty well. And so we asked him, and they both said yes.
Yeah.
It was just awesome. So anyway, Sorry.
Yeah, no. So the
Yep.
group in Southeast Michigan, is that was
Right.
that a real estate related
Yes, it
group?
was.
Okay.
That's the Markage Law Group.
Okay.
IJLAL is law. I think that's what it was. Mark taught us how to buy. Um, see, my head just lost the thought. Where the person's upside down and the bank takes the short sales.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
Mark taught us short sales.
Okay. So was this a paid
Yes,
mastermind type group?
we paid like $2,000 or something to spend a weekend with Mark, and he taught us exactly how to get to the right departments with the bank to do
Mm-hmm.
short sales. Because when the crash first hit,
Yep.
man, you couldn't even figure out who to talk to. I mean, you had the
Yeah.
banks were taking ownership of all these houses. They didn't have the mechanics to get them off their
Yeah,
desk.
they didn't know either.
No,
Yeah.
they didn't know either. So we're kind of inventing the industry then. And Mark's solution was just very quaint. He said, look, the homeowner's been getting buried with mail from the bank of you
Mhm.
got to call this group, you got to call this group, get a hold of these
Yep.
guys. And he said, so the first thing you do is you ask them to share their mail with you from the bank. And it had the phone number on it, and it worked just like that.
Yeah.
Just like that. So, you couldn't go to a realtor to buy a short sale because the payoff was larger than the value of trying to sell the house. So
Yeah.
realtors couldn't get rid of these houses. So we started buying and flipping houses on short sales
Okay.
through Markage Law. So yeah, so like I said, we've always been close to feeling that that's how we got our start was with the Southeast Michigan group. But yeah, that was when we started flipping houses in earnest, and we just met some friends that had done well, and they were able to help us when we started to do apartments.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of you follow whatever path wherever you're going to go. I mean, you just
Yeah.
can't reject like, "Oh, I don't want to try that. That worked. It was nice.
Yeah. Keep trying and keep
Yep,
putting it out
keep
there.
trying.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you're accumulating apartments,
Yes.
and you are working a full-time job at the same time.
Yes, yep. I was a software engineer with Hewlett Packard. I was working full time. Debbie was a registered nurse working full time. She quit. She retired in like 2005.
Okay.
So we'd been probably pretty active in houses and such for maybe 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then she quit to do that full time. And I have to admit, I was working from home. So I started spending a larger and larger amount of my day not doing my day job,
Mm-hmm.
working on real estate. And I probably owe an apology to Hewlett Packard for that. But yeah, it ended up being to where, geez, actually, it's quite a while ago now. In 2017 is when I left Hewlett Packard.
Okay.
Actually, they asked me to leave because I was the only guy doing the work I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a high maturity software engineer, which means I would look at how human beings would write software, and I would determine what could they do to make the software have no defects. And so we'd study their processes, and we'd
Mm-hmm.
study their development skills, and we'd do all this extra stuff. Nowadays, I believe you press a button, and the combination of AI and data banks and all, they're going to create the software for you, and it's going to be flawless. It's not going to fail anyway.
Yeah.
Plus, at that same time, Bill Gates had this thing called Windows. I don't know if you're old enough to
I've
remember.
heard of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
When Windows first came out, it was so buggy and so awful,
Oh yeah.
but everybody loved it
Mm-hmm.
because some of it worked. You know what I mean? So Bill
Yeah.
Gates kind of got the American consumer comfortable that software didn't have to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The next release would be a little bit bigger
Yeah.
or a little bit better. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. So suddenly the whole idea of zero defects and 100% compliance, like NASA type
Mm-hmm.
of performance, it wasn't necessary anymore.
Hmm.
I was the only guy out of 340,000 employees. I was the only guy in Hewlett Packard who was doing high maturity software development.
Huh.
And they said, we don't really need you anymore. And I
Yeah.
said, yeah, no kidding. Debbie'd asked me to quit years before that. And my goal was that I'd quit as soon as my real estate income matched my
Mm-hmm.
day job income. And that had happened like many years before, but the day job was really nice. I mean, my commute was down my stairway
Mm-hmm.
from my bedroom down to my office. 5 weeks paid vacation, very nice
Yeah.
salary,
Yeah.
nice freedom. But I'm really glad that they got rid of me when they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. The
So it was, yep.
timing worked out. So you're buying apartments,
Yes.
and how did you handle management and maintenance? Did you do
Well,
that yourself or hire
we
it
were
out?
we were terrified of the maintenance when we bought the 4 unit. That's why we had Deb's brother with us
Okay.
because he is so good at everything.
He was the
Everything.
hands-on guy.
He was a hands-on guy. Then we realized, you know what? Rick didn't know how to install. Well, I can't remember if he did know how to install Windows, but it was a large job. We knew we had to install Windows
Mhm.
in every opening. And we found a guy that installed Windows.
Mhm.
So that was kind of like our eye-opening to, I'll bet there's guys that do plumbing that you could call. I'll
Yeah.
bet there's guys that do a lot. See, again, that's that learning curve,
Yeah, I
right?
don't have to do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm just not very good at any of this stuff ever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I will take way too long. We'd lose thousands of dollars because the unit would not be rented. But if you find someone who's good and correct and you establish good relationships with them, there's nothing more valuable than having other people that are skilled at this.
Yeah.
So I will tell you this, a guy that can swing a hammer, he's absolutely going to have an advantage over a guy like me.
Mm-hmm.
I think to an extent, because you can't really get any bigger than the number of units you can handle just by yourself.
Yeah.
Where a guy like me, for instance, when we bought the 20 unit and then we bought the 17 unit, we bought both of those in 2015. We were able to turn, that's 37 units. We were able to turn like 30 or 32 units in 18 months.
Oh.
And when I say turn, I mean, no kidding. Floors, doors, sinks, cabinets, counters. I mean,
wow.
these were full blown turns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we hired out people to do the work.
Yeah.
And so we were able to enter into the marketplace right at market levels with really nice units.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really nice units. And I couldn't have done that, no matter how good or how skilled I could have been. Now, these days, we're slowing down. I mean, these days, we're now doing a duplex at a time or maybe a triplex. And I still hire everything out. Now,
Yeah.
Debbie, she is so good. She is. If you guys ever go out to our website, it's www.eskerproperties.com, and you look at the photo of anything, that's all Deb.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's got this incredible eye for color combinations, for textures, for surfaces, for a look.
Yeah.
And I've never met anyone that's as good as her. Problem is, none of us are getting any younger, so it's difficult to we ride Debbie like a train. It's terrible what we're doing to her, but she's still very good at it. But as soon as we can find someone that can keep up with her, yeah, maybe it'll be a little bit less for us to have to do.
So you hired out the maintenance.
Yes,
What
hired
about
out the maintenance.
the management, the day to
The
day.
management was me and Deb together.
You took the calls, you did the showings.
Yes, took the calls, did the showings. I liked the marketing side, kind of
Mhm.
made sense to me. I'd set up, originally there was a place where I was able to run my ad, and the people that I had an ad with would distribute the contents of my ad down to the internet.
Mhm.
And I can't even remember what they were called. Anyway, my ad would have phone number, contact information, website, all this kind of stuff. So I would, for a small fee, is like $400 a year, I would just put a core ad up on their site, and they would send it down to Trulia, Zillow,
Mhm.
Apartments.com, Show Me the Rent, all those online places. And this was in the olden days before Apartments.com said, we're going to do this ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're also going to charge you $400 a unit a month or whatever the fee is. But the marketing side just seemed like kind of a natural thing. I didn't have to do much. Anytime we had a vacancy, I would just turn on that particular address on the core central web location, and it would all trickle down, and the calls would come in, and the interest would come in.
Okay.
And so that marketing part was pretty easy. The most difficult part we have now, I mean, now we're at 90 units, and the most difficult part now is wrestling with things that you're going to get drawn into. Like, for instance, I don't know if you've paid attention to your insurance bills.
Oh, yeah.
Ours have certainly gone up
Mhm.
substantially. Researching insurance is a very time-consuming, difficult thing.
Yeah.
So I need somebody now to start doing the bookkeeping, because I'm still the bookkeeper,
Mhm.
and that doesn't make much sense. I mean, there's people that are far better at this than me
Yeah.
for probably not a back-breaking amount of money
Mhm.
that could do that. So I could do some of these more difficult things.
Yeah.
Like, if there's legal challenges, I mean, go ahead and get involved in one lawsuit and look at where your day goes.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that right now we're on the precipice where, we're going to need somebody else to do some of the office
Mhm.
functions. That's just going to make sense. I mean, when I do it, I end up getting to a point where I don't even create reports anymore. The thing that tells me how good our business is doing is how much money's in the bank accounts.
Yeah.
Well, that's no way to run a
So
business.
do you use a property management software?
No, I don't.
No, you don't? Okay.
No, still don't.
Spreadsheets?
I use spreadsheet to
Okay.
record the term of the lease and the debt that they owe and what they've paid and the name of the I mean, that way I can do an instant rent roll.
Mhm.
It comes right off the spreadsheet. And I'd use Quicken.
Okay.
I don't even use QuickBooks. I use Quicken
Okay.
to manage the money coming in and out. It works. It's very comfortable, but at the same time, it's not really how a pro would do it. So
Well,
I think we need
you're a
somebody else.
pro. I mean, at
Well, I don't
at
know.
90 doors, that
I
sounds
don't
like
know.
professional level.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
maybe there's no right or wrong way, just whatever
True.
works.
Yep, that's whatever works. That's a good point.
So you self-manage.
Yep.
You keep your own books and all that.
Yes.
No property management software.
No.
Any other tips, tricks, software, tools that you use? Like, do they have all your tenants have your personal cell phone number and your home
Yes.
address?
Yes. Well, none of them have my home address.
Okay.
Okay, so we established an LLC with a PO box
Hmm.
because I always felt there should be some distance.
I agree.
Um, I've watched other people where they have the tenants sign a lease and they, like Doug Benson is the landlord,
Yeah.
and send your check to Doug Benson's home address. And I just thought that doesn't make sense because some people, they want to drop by.
Yeah.
They want to knock on your door
Or
because they
they're
got a
angry.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought, well, I didn't want to set myself up for that. So we
Yeah.
came up with a PO box, and no, we don't give out the home address.
Okay.
We absolutely give out my cell number, though. I mean, it's
Okay.
been the same phone number for maybe 20 years.
Wow.
So that works. That number's everywhere. But yeah, and I'm very comfortable with the tenants calling me up. The way our maintenance works is like that. They send me a text message. The shower doesn't work. I'll say, I'm on it. Can we enter your apartment if you're not home
Hmm.
to fix it? And then if it's yes, then I'll go ahead and get a hold of, we've got people that do drains, we got people that do fixtures, we got people that do plumbing. So I'll get a hold of whatever expert I need,
Hmm.
and I'll say, hey, I've got like Elmhurst number 6 needs a shower, needs a new shower head or something like that. And they'll get on it.
Yeah.
And so it's more kind of a air traffic controller kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Hmm.
But it seems to work really well.
Yeah.
And one advantage that you get when you buy these buildings like we buy them is like I said, we completely overhaul the buildings. So there isn't a lot going on. Like
Yeah.
there isn't my floors are a mess or
Hmm.
this door doesn't work. Yeah, I mean there's aren't major things. There's of course appliances that break down,
Hmm.
but I am so old school with that. I just buy a new one.
Yeah.
I don't even we used to look for, could we get a scrap one or could we get a used and then you're dealing with that in another
Yeah.
6 months. So now it's just very easy to step up to that stuff now.
Yeah, well,
So
you start where you start. I think everyone starts that way. If you
yep,
don't have much
I
money,
think they
it's like
do.
you have to figure out what works. And then we recently kind of switched to that model too. We used to, well, can we fix it? Or can we find
Yes.
an equal used one? But then the used
Yes.
ones typically didn't work. And certain things, it just makes sense to always just
David, you're so
buy
right.
new.
Again, you can get wrapped around the axle
Yeah.
of trying to find a stove.
Hmm.
It can take 4 hours out of your day. And I don't think that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And for example, we got a really nice used stove from a used company that delivered it. But I guess while they were installing it, like a roach or something fell out of the bottom of it.
Oh,
And so you don't
no.
know where
Yeah,
they're
that's right.
coming from.
That's true. That's a good point.
So a new one, at least it's under warranty. The company will typically deliver it,
Yep.
especially upstairs,
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that's wisdom.
Oh,
So,
wasn't COVID fun when they
oh,
wouldn't deliver anything?
oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's when we'd have to physically show up. We'd have to carry the refrigerator from the entrance doors up to
Hmm.
the third floor because the delivery guys wouldn't enter the building
Yeah.
because of COVID.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You could
that's behind us.
tip 'em a
Yeah.
little extra maybe. But so, how much time do you spend on real estate now?
I'm probably all in maybe 10 hours a week.
And what about Deb? Because you tag
Deb
team
is
it.
probably 30 plus hours a
Okay.
week. She is absolutely hands on.
Hmm.
And that's so whack out of balance. I
Hmm.
mean, Debbie has always been the person who shows up, who paints, who she turns walls into this beautiful.
What's in her blood, right? I mean,
It
that's,
is.
yeah,
I think it is. And I think for her it's very fulfilling.
yeah,
For me, I'm so bad at it. I don't even want to start because I know I'm going to mess something
yeah.
up or ruin something,
Hmm.
and I just hate it when I make a mistake. So yeah, it's what she does, and wow, she's good at it. She's absolutely good at it. So
So 40
yeah,
hours to
I think
manage
40 hours. Yep,
90 units.
90 units. Yeah,
Impressive.
I don't see. I don't know. Is it? I
I
just
think,
don't
well,
know.
and you're not doing the maintenance, so it's just like you
Right.
said, air traffic control. So
Yes.
someone
Yep.
calls, you call someone else, and 5 minutes later, it's settled, right?
Right.
So or it's in motion to be
Exactly.
settled. Yeah.
Like, all our leases are identical. I just swap out the name. I mean, it's super easy to put together a
Hmm.
lease package. Takes me maybe 3 minutes
Hmm.
to put together a complete lease package. It's just everything. We have all these online payment systems that just automatically deposit the money. I don't have to go visit a bank or anything like that.
Yeah.
Some of our tenants like to write a check. And I just said to the bank, hey, I've got some checks in my office. Can I get a scanner? And the bank gave me a scanner for free.
Okay.
So I just feed the checks into the scanner, bada bing, bada boom, that's done.
Okay.
I just feel like I've taken quite a lot of the extra turns out of my life. Like
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I was inside a bank transacting business on behalf of escrow properties.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one less step I have to do. So I don't know. That's seems like the easiest way.
All right. Yeah. So having that many units, I'm sure that there's been a horror story or two that maybe you can share because a lot of people don't get into it because they're scared of what happens if you have a bad tenant, or what horror story. So maybe you can share a horror
Sure.
story and then you live to tell the tale.
I probably have two. What would be? Oh, maybe three.
Yeah.
Let's start with one it's humorous, but it's ghastly. This was a guy living at Alpha Street, top floor, and he said the shade in my living room, when I turn the handle, the blades or the blinds
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, they don't turn.
Mm-hmm.
They're stuck. So I'm like, okay, I got to go up there. I got to measure the shade. I'm probably gonna have to buy him a new
Mm-hmm.
shade. I say, are you home? He goes, no, but my uncle's there. So okay. So Deb and I were together, and
Mm-hmm.
I knock on the door, and I can hear the TV is going on.
Yeah.
I knock on the door, nobody answers. Knock on the door again, and I unlock the door, and I swing it open, and there's a guy sitting in a chair just like this, and he's staring at the TV, and his hands are on his knees. And I go, "Oh, I'm sorry. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't, when you didn't get the door, I didn't know there's anyone."
Yeah.
I'm all very apologetic, and he doesn't respond. And Debbie, who's an RN,
Mm-hmm.
recognizes this is a corpse.
Yeah. Oh,
This is
wow.
a dead person.
Yeah.
And it was.
Wow.
And
Wow. And you
yeah,
walked in
we
on it.
walked in. And so I called the guy, and I said, your uncle's here, but he's dead. I mean, do you ever think you're ever going to say those words in your life? Oh, so then all chaos broke loose,
Mm-hmm.
because then, of course, now the police are coming
Mm-hmm.
over, and he had died. He had one of those glass pipes. I don't know if his crack he died from,
Okay.
or if
Mm-hmm.
he was smoking something
Yeah.
bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the police are there, and now they kind of want to investigate, seeing what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. Now the word has got out to this guy's family that Uncle Billy, or whatever his name is
Mm-hmm.
dead. So they're pouring into the pocket,
Oh, wow.
and they're pouring out of their cars. They're screaming, they're yelling, "Oh, I
Yeah.
gotta see!" It was chaos.
Yeah.
It was chaos, and we couldn't leave because we discovered the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So the cops wanted to talk to us. That was probably the single most. I mean, it's a great Thanksgiving Day story, but you just don't want that to happen very often.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. The other crazy one happened probably 2 or 3 years ago at our Waverly building. We ran into a woman. She was the manager of the Home Depot out there.
Okay.
She came from Eaton County. She was worked with some housing support group that paid her first month's rent and her deposit,
Mm-hmm.
but she had a nice full-time job, good credit check. Previous people said good things about her.
Yeah.
Like, I was excited to have her
Mhm.
there. Signed the lease, and that was the last money we received from her.
Hmm.
Okay. So now we're 6 months later. She's not paid a dime
Mhm.
other than when she moved in. So now we're not on good terms with her.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, now there's a man living in the apartment who we don't know who he is,
Hmm.
and there's trouble. And that escalates to now a gun goes off in that unit,
Oh, wow.
and the bullet flies through the apartment wall, across the hallway,
Mm-hmm.
where people can be out in the
Yeah.
hallway just standing around, went into the unit across the hallway, ricocheted off their living room wall, went into their closet, and lodged into the backside of their bifold doors of their closet.
Oh.
I mean, a completely out of
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
So we had to get her out. Now, in the old days, you used to be able to get a 24-hour eviction
Mm-hmm.
for exactly that.
Yeah.
For
safety of the building.
for
or
safety of
whatever.
the building, or for, they threatened you, or maybe
Mhm.
they threatened one of the other tenants or something like that. Well, with COVID, you
Oh.
can't. It was 6 months before we could get that woman to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, we had to get an agreement with her that we would give her a deposit back in order to get her to leave. I mean, by that point, I was
Was
going to
that
give
through
her.
the court, or that was something you and her
We had
agreed
negotiated it with her and her attorney,
to? Okay.
and all the back rent that she owed was going to be paid up for by the. Who was giving us money during COVID?
Sierra. Yeah.
Sierra.
Mhm.
Yep, Sierra. So the lady she was talking to represented Sierra in Lansing. They said, yes, we'll take care of her. Sorry she's not paid. So it was easy to have happen. Well, she ended up frauding Sierra, because when she came from Eaton Rapids, that was a fraud show.
Mm-hmm.
Eaton Rapids had been trying to figure out where she had gone. They gave her money, but they didn't ever follow up with her as to where she went after she got their money.
Mm-hmm.
She moved in with me. Then she frauded the Lansing Sierra people. So everybody's after this woman.
Yeah.
It has a happy ending, though, because I work with a guy, and I don't mind saying his name. His name is John Hintz. We've
Mhm.
had John come talk to us at the RPOAMM. John was able to find her,
Okay.
and he got her served. And, you know, that was 2 years ago when all this awfulness happened. And just last week, I got a very powerful check from an income tax garnishment
Okay.
from this woman.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's no money better flavored than when you get that kind of, it's better than found money.
Yeah.
You know, when you can recover a loss like that.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have all of it recovered, but at least we're
A
tapped
wrong has
into,
been
yeah, a
righted.
wrong
Yeah.
has been righted. But yeah, those are the two nightmare
Yeah.
scenarios. I'll tell you, in all our years, that was our second gunshot that
Hmm.
we'd had. The first one was during the spring of COVID, during the spring of 2020. An angry boyfriend shot his girlfriend, who happened to be my tenant, in the leg out in the parking lot.
Okay.
And then he ran up and hid in her apartment, and we let the police in, and they went up and busted him. And
Yeah.
so he's in jail right now. But that was, and I said to the cop, I said, you know, I said, it seems like I'm reading a lot about gunfire around the city.
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, it's like, this was May, maybe of 2020. She says in the first 5 months of May, we're 300% increase over the entire 2019
Well.
in the first 5 months.
Well.
So yeah, that was another fallout of COVID. I think there's a lot of frustration, a lot of angst,
Yeah.
a lot of people just casually discharging weapons.
Yeah. Uncertainty. Yeah.
Yes. But that's the dark side.
And it goes to show that I mean, it wasn't necessarily your tenant
No, it
that was
wasn't.
causing the
It
issue. It was
wasn't.
the people
Yeah.
that they know or the people
Yep.
they choose to surround themselves with.
And you know, that's the thing. I'd like to think I'm pretty good at this business, but one part I'm not very good at is that periphery.
Yeah.
You know, like the lady that we rented to, the
Mhm.
one with the gunfire, it was her boyfriend or the father of her child that
Mhm.
ended up being
Yeah.
real dangerous man. But I don't know how you discover that.
Yeah.
There must be a way
You can't
to,
run or applications on there.
I know it, like, is there some sort of
Yeah.
national database? You know, I just don't know how to figure that out.
Yeah.
So
That's a tough one.
it is. So you can have a pretty good looking person in front of you by
Mhm.
themselves, but you have to realize if there's a good person in a family, normally they end up being the magnet for the troubled people to come
Sometimes, yeah.
and live. But I don't know. I just have to be better able to figure that out. I'd love to know how to do that. And if somebody does know, please give me a call, because I will freely admit I'm lost on that one. So
Yeah, and at the same time, you don't want to like not rent to this person because cousin Eddie over here is a criminal,
exactly.
because they
Right.
might not, they
The-
might be best friends or have no
exactly.
ties. You don't know.
I just don't know how you do it.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I've been doing rentals now for what, 23 years? I still don't know how to
yeah.
do
There's
that.
some risk in it either
Yep.
way, but
But when it works right,
yeah,
honestly, when it works good, there's nothing better than a good tenant that is happy with the building you've provided them.
hmm
They tell nice things to their friends about their landlord. I mean, the worst thing in the world is when you do have an incident like that gunshot. Everybody's telling everybody, "My God,
yeah,
there was a handgun got discharged in my
hmm
bill." I mean, you can't fight that.
yeah,
It's just that's how humans work.
hmm
So if you can put a good vibe out there, suddenly you're not marketing so hard. Suddenly you're getting good people,
hmm
referring good people. Because I don't think anybody wants to live with a knucklehead.
yeah.
You know, I don't think anyone's like, "Oh, I know this deranged moron that's looking for a place to live."
Should
Yeah,
move in there. Yeah,
exactly. No, it'll be, "Hey, my former neighbor Julie from where I used to live, whatever. She's looking for a place. Can I give her your number?"
hmm
It really there's a really nice circle that happens
yeah,
if you get that going. So I don't know. I just, like I said, those two things that I gave you, they're the two worst things that have happened to
yeah,
us in 20 years. They were bad,
yeah.
but they're behind us. So
Yeah,
away
you
we
don't
go.
make it 20 years without a couple
That's
bad
true. I
stories.
don't
So,
think you do.
and you live and learn,
Yep.
But all right, so transitioning,
Sure.
some of your apartments you said that are midterm rentals now.
Yes.
So
Yep.
what made you do the first one in the first place, and how has that been going, and why are you continuing to add more?
Okay. In our 20 unit building, on the bottom floor of each corner is a 1,700 square foot
Oh,
apartment.
the monster. Yeah,
So there's
three
two,
bedrooms.
yes,
Okay.
3 bedrooms, two full baths,
Oh.
enormous kitchen. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
1,700
Yeah.
square foot footprint. One of them we have is a long term rental. The same guy's been there since we bought the building
Mhm.
almost. He's been a tenant for like 9 years. The other one, though, the people that were there came with the building. There was like 7 or 8 or 9 of them, and they started a fire, and there was a cooktop. So when the fire started, not only did it burn up the cabinets above it, but it burned up the countertop too.
Mhm.
Basically, it nuked the kitchen.
Okay.
So there's no way they could make food. There's no way they could do
Mhm.
anything. And I wanted them the heck out of there,
Yeah.
because that's part of our strategies. When we buy a troubled building like that one was, it was absolutely troubled.
Yeah.
our goal is to clear everybody out so we can get to work and
Mhm.
clean up the building. So they left.
Okay.
We completely renovated the
Mhm.
building, and now it's gorgeous. I
I gotta
mean,
ask, was that insurance money or was that
no,
okay?
it was just us.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just us cash flowing. We put in tile floors in the kitchen. We redid the bathrooms. The bedrooms all look gorgeous. And then Deb said, you know, we ought to try doing an Airbnb.
Mhm.
And Debbie is always the one with the great ideas. I don't think I've had one good idea. Debbie's, I mean, like, yeah, that's a great idea. So we bought furniture, we bought beds, we bought televisions, we bought kitchen appliances, plates, dishes, linens, all that. And the minute we put the ad out on Airbnb, like the next day, we had a bunch of people that were in here from the Wharton Center. They were here for either Hamilton or
Mhm.
some other kind of big, important show.
Mhm.
They're from New York and they knew they needed 3 weeks to stay
Yeah.
and they stayed at our place.
Okay.
Well, what do you suppose happened there? Then they went and told all their other Wharton Center people about, hey, suddenly we're in the Airbnb business and
Mhm.
it's booked all the time.
Okay.
And so we thought, let's try this again. So we did the unit across the hall,
Mhm.
which is a 2-bedroom. Then we started looking at our 1 bedrooms at Alpha Street, and we just started turning over as we could. As people would move out,
Mhm.
we'd turn over them, we'd furnish them, we'd make them very nice. And now that's been very good. It was the right thing to do.
Are you doing more short term, like nightly rentals, or
We don't do short term at all anymore.
okay?
Only because the medium term or the short term business isn't so much a real estate play as
Yeah.
much as it is a hospitality
It's a
play.
full time business.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah. So when you're doing long term real estate, it's always about how much is the rent, how good is the person who's going to rent from it. When you're doing medium term or short term, it's what kind of coffee do you serve?
Mhm.
What? I
Yeah.
mean, are your beds any good? What are your
Mhm.
linens like? Are your dishes clean and nice and no chips? I mean, it's a different mindset. It's
Mhm.
kind of like you're running a hotel.
Yeah.
And that takes people with skills other than real estate skills to make that operation go. And that's the only thing I want to warn people of. I know Airbnbs, they're lucrative when you can make them work, but
Mhm.
boy, in order to be good to where people want to come to you a second time, it's like anything else. I got to have a good first experience with you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to just having a place to rent.
Mhm.
I mean, I know it's easy enough to think, hey, Aunt Matilda left me this house. I'm just going to turn it into an Airbnb. Well, if it's a junk house and nobody likes it too much, you're maybe going to rent it once and then you're done. So I think there's quite a burden that people don't recognize because it's so easy to get signed up with Airbnb.
Mhm.
It's so easy to get signed up with Furnish Finders. But to run that as a business, you really have to keep your I's dotted and your T's crossed.
Mhm.
The biggest thing we have now is balancing out the calendar. Like for instance, we're now in trouble because everything we own is booked through July to August.
Mhm.
And there's many people that are always traveling, which is another thing we didn't understand.
Mhm.
I thought Airbnb was for vacations
Mhm.
because we've used it in the past to rent a cottage or to rent a weekend.
Yeah.
And I just was like, geez, who's going to take a vacation in Lansing?
Right.
You wouldn't think that anybody would. But you know what? We've had people that have stopped by because their daughter lives in the neighborhood and she just had a baby.
Mhm.
And they're coming in from Nevada and they want to hang out for 3 weeks with their brand new
Yeah.
baby. What? We've had people from China stay there. They're physicists. They work over at MSU with a
Mhm.
cyclotron. We've had people in from Consumers Energy because, they're tearing up the roads
Mhm.
and the managers need a place to
Yeah.
live. So if you try to cater to that part of the market,
Mhm.
there's any number of people that need a place to stay.
So do you have a 30-day minimum?
We have a 30-day minimum.
Okay. And
Yep.
what platforms do you list those properties for rent
We
on?
list them on Airbnb and we list them on Furnish Finders.
Okay.
And with a 30-day minimum, they are now the same as a long-term tenant in
Yeah.
terms of the laws that apply to them,
Okay.
in terms of the contractual agreements.
Mhm.
And that's why we went to medium-term rentals because I think there's a target on short-term rentals. There's some communities that don't like them, and so they kind of
Yeah,
rise
they
up
can be
against them.
rowdier,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they can.
Mhm.
We had some when we used to do short-term rentals. We had one time where a lady rented it, and it was for a 16th birthday party for her son.
Mhm.
We ended up with like 40. We counted on our camera. We
Yeah.
counted 42 people
Yeah.
entering the unit.
Mhm.
Like we just didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it takes away those kind of crazy moments too. But yeah, medium-term rentals. It's like having a month-to-month lease.
And
It's a
how does
30-day lease.
the rent or the income compare? Because that's after the management, the furniture, the extra upkeep, the extra cleanings and things, is it more lucrative than a long-term
It
lease?
is. Yes, it's more lucrative. You get a little bit higher margin on the income.
Mhm.
Um, I have to admit, our long-term leases have really throttled up this last year.
Yeah.
It used to be 2.5 times the rent from the medium terms
Mhm.
compared to the long terms. Now it's just a little, in fact, it's not quite even 2 times
Mhm.
because my long term rates have gone up and we've not raised our medium term rates too high.
Mhm.
So it's the income is wonderful. The clientele is wonderful
Mhm.
because these people normally have a function, a purpose, a need to be
Yeah.
in the community.
Mhm.
They're not here because they're looking to party. I mean, nobody parties for 30 days, right? So you
Yeah.
kind of eliminate all that
Well,
sort
some
of,
people probably do,
well,
but
maybe
yeah,
they
yeah.
do. You're right. See,
Mhm.
that's what happens
That's
when
what
you're
we
talking
should
to
talk about, yeah.
when you're talking to a 65-year-old guy. I forgot. Maybe they do party for 30 days. But these are mostly people that have a job to do. Um, they tend to be, I don't want to say wealthy, but they usually have their act together
Mhm.
financially. A lot of times the companies that they're working for are paying their bill
Mhm.
to stay. So it's a different type of clientele. But again, we give them big high def TVs, smart TVs. We give them their own standalone internet router.
Mhm.
We give them a beautiful bed. And that's the thing. I'll tell anybody if you are going to get into this, you got to have the best part of the stay has to be how you sleep
Mhm.
and how you're awake when you're staring at the television.
Yeah.
So we give them a very nice high def, it's 55-inch high def television. We buy LG because they come with their own channels, which makes it a lot easier.
Mhm.
People don't have to sign up for Netflix or anything
Mhm.
like that. We give them a high speed internet connection,
Mhm.
which allows many people, like one guy was down here as a software engineer,
Yeah.
and he just stayed in the unit and coded all day long.
And you said you mentioned that you give each person their own router. So if you have
Yes,
multiple in the same building, each one
yes,
has their own router?
yes,
Okay.
yep. We've got 8 routers over at
Why is
Alpha
that? Is
Street.
that for security
Well, it
purposes or
makes them
speed?
feel comfortable. They can
Mhm.
have the full dedication and power of that router.
Mhm.
And it makes our ability to understand the costs kind of like I know if number six is, if I'm being billed, because these are Comcast
Mhm.
Xfinity routers, I get billed $40 a month for a router. If I start sharing routers, I don't really know. And if a router starts to fail or struggle, like I can't keep up, I
Yeah.
don't know why the reason
You're right.
is.
Yeah, is it too
So,
much use or is
yeah.
it
So,
yeah.
and I didn't want to try to be smart enough to figure that out.
Okay.
So I just thought, a dedicated router will always be the
Mhm.
best solution, especially if you're a person traveling.
Yeah.
I think we provide a really nice experience that way for internet connectivity.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why we do it like that.
Okay, and then so are you slowly transitioning 100% of your units to that or will you always
I
have
don't think
some long
so. I
term?
don't think 100%. I think we'll always have long term. Um, the units that we're doing in Holt, we're considering the idea of maybe we're going to turn those into medium term rentals
Mhm.
because it's an attractive thing. I mean, I think we have one single medium term rental at our Dallas Avenue building.
Mhm.
It's just a 1 bedroom. It sits in the bottom of the building next to the laundry room, and that's rented all the time.
Mhm.
I mean, all the time. So maybe we ought to have some more of those in Holt. But I think if I were to go to 100%, oh my gosh, I think Deb and I would just vaporize in a
Yeah.
week. It's
Is that
just,
what's kind of keeping you from transitioning even more or transitioning all of them is just because it does require more time?
well, maybe. One thing that I think, and I don't know if you're to the point where you're comfortable, we ended up getting comfortable with one of the units over at Alpha Street. It was a wonderful place to store stuff.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
So now I've got an apartment over there that's all full of, oh, wait, I know where an extra air conditioner
Yeah.
is. I know where an
Mhm.
extra bed frame is. And so the thought of shutting that down to turn that into yet another Airbnb, we just need more discipline. We now have reached a point where we probably ought to have some external facilities somewhere
Mhm.
to hold on to all the extra cabinets and televisions and air conditioners and
Yeah.
all the pieces and parts you accumulate.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think our goal is not to make all of them medium term rentals, but we're certainly not intimidated to play more in that market.
Are you systematized to the point where, like all your queen size sheets are all the same or all your silverware is the
Yes,
same
yes.
or is each unit
Every
unique?
bed is queen sized.
Okay.
Every single bed, every single mattress. It really helps when you're washing linens. I mean, we turned the laundry room in our north side Alpha building into a
Mhm.
commercial laundry room.
Okay.
I mean, we bought, no kidding, heavy duty, high end,
Mhm.
stackable washer and dryers down there. We increased the drains. We tore up the floors. added 4-inch drains leading away from it because we just knew we're going to be running
Yeah.
way more
Is
water
that
through
where the
those.
majority of your midterm rentals are?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
8 of them there. I think we're at 10 total.
Okay.
Yeah. And 8 of them are in that one building.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of like the central location for all that. But yeah, it helps if everything's the same from that perspective. Where we're not the same, like we don't have the same dishes.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the same glasses. We don't have the same silverware.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting closer and closer,
Mm-hmm.
but eventually you just end up to where, hey, we're at Sam's. Those are nice. That would work. And we buy them,
Mm-hmm.
So probably a little bit more discipline to where everything's exactly the same might make it not so interesting, I guess.
I'm always wondering how long does the furniture last? The couches, that type of thing. If there's wear and tear, do you notice, hey, it's a little frayed, let's replace it, or do you wait until someone actually breaks it or rips it, or
We won't like frayed or damaged because that you can visually see, and it just
yeah.
sends a message that's kind of maybe a crappy thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to swap that out. The only things we've really had break on us are bed frames,
Okay.
and it's because of the way people use beds can sometimes be more than what the bed's prepared for. And
Uh-huh.
these are metal. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, these are sturdy bed frames. So it's not like they're breaking left and right, but we've had on a couple of occasions where we've had to replace because
Mm-hmm.
a leg got bent or the whole
Mm-hmm.
corner of the bed got warped
Like,
because
what were
of
you doing?
exactly. And you can't say that, but yeah, no, there's really I think like if you were to go to a hotel and you saw that there's a big long scrape on the top of the table, it just kind of send a message,
Yeah.
So we we don't like it when that does happen. We
Okay.
try to have everything nice and new as best we can. Um we like again, I don't go out and I don't buy 12 sofas. I buy onesie twosie to replace sofas, but
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you order stuff online, like from Wayfair, or are you
yes,
more likely
we
to go into someplace local and get eyes on it and say that's
huge on Wayfair.
okay?
We're able to get like all our entertainment centers.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to get these beautiful, you build them yourself, and they're only like, I don't know, $175, $189 or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And they're really nice entertainment centers with sliding doors and a bunch of,
Yeah.
and we put those in every unit.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some deals that are best to get them online,
Yeah.
but the sofas and the dining room sets, we get theirs wherever there's a good price. So
Okay.
it might be online, it might be out on the west side of Lansing,
Yeah.
going to Value City or whatever's out
Okay.
there. So
So 20 years later, you have midterm rentals, you have
yep,
apartments,
yep.
and then I was gonna ask what you're looking forward to or what you're doing next, but it sounds like you're renovating the unit,
Yeah,
one of
yep.
the first properties you started with.
Yes, the
You're
very
giving
first
it a
one. We want to turn that into something really special.
okay.
And I'll bet that's going to happen this year. We've recently purchased some properties in Mason. We're going to be hitting one of them. We're finishing up probably this week,
Mm-hmm.
and that just came out beautiful.
Long term, short term.
Long term.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just came out beautiful. And again, that's one that Debbie's been very close to, and it's a deal we did with our daughter and her husband,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of the nice blessing. Is that the other deal we're doing with our other daughter and her husband?
Okay.
So I just like that. It feels right.
Yeah.
It feels
It's a
cool
family
to
business.
partnership
Yeah.
up with your family. Both these girls they've already owned income property.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's kind of fun to have some partners that are excited about it that are also your kids.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing in Mason. Mason's just a neat community. I'm a Mason guy. We moved to Mason in 1964. I graduated from Mason. So did Deb. So we have our roots there, and it's just kind of a nice community.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed it, and it seems like it's a real hot spot for people that want to live.
Yeah.
Just live. It's like it's a bedroom community.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, those little outskirt towns around Lansing are great.
yes, they are.
So what does the future hold? I mean, are you going to continue to buy more buildings, or are you always on the lookout, or what do you think?
I don't know. I'll tell you this: to buy a 20 unit or a 17 unit, and then to remodel every single unit,
Mm-hmm.
that's not on my list of what I think is fun to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'll ever do that again, which is
Okay.
maybe stupid. Maybe I should do that. I honestly don't know. I'm at a state now where I've got some real 1031 considerations.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to ever sell something to get rid of it,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we all like the IRS. I don't want to ever be recorded saying I've got a problem with the IRS, but man, I don't want to pay the tax bill for that.
Yeah.
So I think I'll never be able to truly get completely away from real estate, but there's
Mm-hmm.
certainly other ways to be involved with
Yeah.
it with just, some big cash into maybe a leverage type of group or a syndicate or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. I honestly don't know. David, I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
So I can't figure out what
It
to do
changes,
next. It does.
too, over
It does.
time.
It does.
So are you more the type to maximize cash flow or pay down the loan and you have more equity, or
Cash flow.
okay.
I've been a cash flow investor only because when we started, it was 2002, and there was zero appreciation. I mean, there was some appreciation in the real
It was
estate
a big
market then.
unknown. Yeah.
Yeah, but you just like, for instance, if you're in Miami or if you're in New York or if you're in LA or San
Hmm.
Francisco, you're banking on the thing being more valuable tomorrow than it is today. When you're in Michigan or in the Midwest, that's not always true.
Yeah.
So I've always been a cash flow first investor. These last few years have been so lucrative from the
Hmm.
marketplace. I mean, that's just a gift that was given to us, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, great. Good for us. We happen to own some property when the properties went nuts, but we never invested with the intent that that was going to happen.
Right.
So yeah, we're a big cash flow investor. As far as being like many people I talk to that are in real estate investors, they talk about how they want to be debt free when they
Hmm.
die. And I'm just thinking, whoever it was that started General Electric or
Hmm.
whoever it was that started GM or whoever it was that started Warehouse or any Westinghouse, I don't think they were debt free when they died.
Right.
And I think they might have started this thing 100 years ago. So I've never really thought that everything has to be paid off.
Yeah.
And the last financing cycle, which was 5 years ago, oh, the rates were so awesome that
Hmm.
you had to finance as much as you possibly could. This one that we're in right now,
Hmm.
I'm probably looking at 6 to 7%
Hmm.
money on the notes. I probably won't take any money out, but we're kind of now running everything off our cash flow.
Hmm.
So it's like I don't know. As you can tell, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I really don't know what I'm going
And
to do,
that's okay.
David.
Real estate gives you options. You
Yeah,
can pull the equity
I need to
out. You
hang
can
around with
leave it
you
in
more
there.
because you're doing some fun things that are fun to watch, and I'm just like, I got to find something to do, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
There's always more to do.
yes, there is. There is.
So just in closing, I wanted
Yeah,
to see if there was any referrals, contractors, anybody that you could share with the audience here that that benefited you, that might benefit them.
sure.
Uh,
Um, and the guy's probably overworked, but my HVAC guy has been a blessing.
yeah.
It's Brian Wilson.
Yeah. Brian Wilson, he's the
He
man.
he's such a good man,
Hmm.
and he started out with us. He was our maintenance man.
Okay.
We hired him to do maintenance at Alpha Street. And I remember going up, he was supposed to start on Monday. And I remember going up and he's in the unit and it's Saturday and he's working. And I'm
Hmm.
like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to start for another
Yeah.
couple of days. And he goes, well, I just kind of wanted to see what I was doing, get a start on it. I mean, all the stuff that you normally
Hmm.
don't get from a contractor. Um, I love Brian Wilson. He's been with us forever, it seems like. I mean, that was probably we bought Alpha Street in 2004. That's probably in 2006. So we've known Brian for close to 20 years.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Brian's been great with HVAC. My electrician, I don't want to give his name out because he does not need any more business.
Okay.
But everybody knows who he is.
Hmm.
And if I tell you who he is, you of course will know him.
Hmm.
He's just been wonderful too.
Hmm.
There are people that are just so good, decent, kind people, and it shows in their work and it shows in their work ethic that you can't wait to hire them because then you get to give them money.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good that you're
Hmm.
paying them to do something. But yes, we've surrounded ourselves with a very consistent group of people. Um, Probably what we used to have and we don't anymore have is a flooring specialist.
Hmm.
We used to have a guy and he ended up trying to become a flooring salesman and that didn't really work.
Yeah.
He's better as an installer and we just kind of fell out of touch with him. But yeah, I guess if there's anything we need right now is a good flooring installer. But we have son-in-laws that are helping us now.
There you go.
And one
That's
of
the
our
secret.
son-in-laws is
That's the secret.
immensely talented.
Hmm.
He builds furniture.
Okay.
So and his furniture is breathtakingly
Hmm.
beautiful. So he's like Debbie. And Deb and him get along like perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't do what they can do together. I,
Mhm.
in fact, have to excuse myself because they can be all day long talking about, is it R38 or do you think it's R31 that goes up in there?
Mhm.
I mean, their conversations are very powerful, but he's really good. And I don't want to share his name because I want to keep him to myself,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I think I'm not doing a good job answering.
Cleaners,
question.
painters,
Um,
lawn care people. Anybody else you've had good experiences
You know
with?
what? We go through lawn care like Spinal Tap goes through drummers.
Okay.
Lawn
Mhm.
care is snowplow guys. And it's probably on me. I'm probably too cheap because you've paid for
Old
probably a
habits die
winter.
hard. Yeah.
You've probably paid for a winter or two of plowing,
Oh yeah.
or maybe you've got your own plowing. I don't know how you do it.
No. Yeah. We get new quotes each year.
There you go.
Mhm.
Yep. If you have a busy year with a lot of snow,
Mhm.
you could just find yourself every month writing $7,000 a month in
Mhm.
checks. And you need to, because I mean, after the fifth month of 7,000 a month, you go, I spent $35,000
Yeah.
on snow removal. And somehow you got to explain to your wife
Right.
why I didn't hire a person, why I didn't buy a truck, why I don't own a snow removal. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's difficult.
Mhm.
Again, that's another part of my business where I'm used to picking up the phone and calling someone to help me, that I probably need to have dedicated resource for that.
Okay.
And I've not figured it out yet.
Yeah.
And lawn care, same. I mean, the guy that does our lawns now, he's been with us for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's the longest we've had. We've been doing this for 22 years.
Yeah.
The longest we've had is this guy for 3.
All right.
So we kind of, and it's the silly little things that cause them to go away. It's like for instance, our Elmhurst building, we have a fence all the way around the
Mhm.
building. He just doesn't seem to recognize to kill the plants that are growing underneath the fence.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or when he used to mow, he'd blow the lawn stuff on the building.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd have to show up and brush off all the windows and
Mhm.
and I'm just like, don't do this to me. I mean,
Yeah.
so we talked to him and he's not doing that anymore, but it's difficult. I don't know. If Brian Wilson were to open up any of those services, I would just immediately sign him up.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
that's how much.
always the tough part, right? Is like, do they need more training and guidance, or do I just need a different person?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I double the amount that I pay, if I'll find that person that does it
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. Maybe that's the.
I'm afraid to find that out.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm so cheap. I don't know. But yeah, that's geez, I'm trying to think of what other name could I put out there that would help everybody. Obviously Brian with HVAC. Can't mention can't mention my plumber either, because he's working off the license of our former plumber, so I don't know what that means.
Painter, locksmith, emergency drain cleaning.
Well, locksmith, we used to use Mark's. Yeah, he passed away.
Mhm.
Mark. I hate that I can't remember his Mark's. Nope, forget it. His business is up on Cedar Street. It's near Mount Hope. It's a little bit south of Mount Hope. Oh, I hate that I can't remember his last name. That's me not being a good friend. He was our locksmith for years.
Mhm.
Now I use Dan's Locksmith out of Secure Lock and Door.
Okay.
He's at 911 East Grand River Avenue, and he's
Mhm.
been wonderful.
Okay.
Because we end up to where, for instance, we will buy a push button lock for
Mhm.
our medium term rentals. Well, I've got to, and we always get it with a key. Well, I've got to have every one of those locks, even though they come with their own set of keys. I got to have that old tumblers thrown out, and I have to have it rekeyed to our master,
Okay.
because we have a single master that unlocks all
Okay.
90 doors,
Mhm.
right? And so Dan can do that in a day. I mean, Dan could come out if we have a door that fails because the locking mechanism over at my Waverly building, that locking mechanism just broke.
Mhm.
There were people trapped inside the building.
Oh wow.
He came over that moment and got us out of that.
Oh.
So yeah, he's been wonderful. See, my head's going back to Mark's last name. Mark Blum.
There you
Sorry.
go.
BLUM. Yep. He's a great guy. Passed away, but he had been our locksmith forever. And he was the locksmith for, I mean, Lansing has quite a bit of an install base of 60 to 70-year-old buildings,
Mhm.
especially when you look like the school districts and the
Yeah.
state of Michigan and that. And so everybody ended up working through Mark. I mean, Mark had probably 5,000 or 6,000 doors that he was responsible for the
Oh,
lock
wow.
and key for. So he was a big deal. And I don't know who does it now. Somebody must do it now,
Yeah.
but not Mark. Anyway.
All right. Well, it's been an hour, so I appreciate you spending some time
I'm sorry,
with me
David.
here.
You get me talking, it's on
No,
you.
an hour was
yep.
what I was shooting for. So
Okay, that's great.
we're right on the money. But
Beautiful.
where if people want to reach out to you or ask additional questions, where's a good spot to either run into you or contact you?
Sure. Feel free to send me an email. It's doug@eskerproperties.com. Go to our website, www.eskerproperties.com. You can call me, 517-290-6739. That'll work too. Or they could get a hold of you and you could say, hey, I know Doug. I'll let them know that you're looking for him.
All right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
We take all calls.
Yeah. Thanks a
Beautiful.
lot.
Appreciate it, David.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
This
good
was
to talk
fun.
to you.
This is good.